morning, everyone. You're listening to Bound for Glory on Sin. I'm Jordan.
I'm Joe.
I'm Matt Marsden.
Joycey.
He's in a good mood this morning.
Yes,
I wonder why. Because
I wonder why. We'll talk about it in a bit.
Alrighty. Well, why don't we
Straight
talk about
away?
it now?
Okay, straight away then.
Because you're a bit excited. I know you're trying to contain your excitement here.
Yes.
You're trying to be a bit professional,
That's
but
true.
you want to belt the song out,
I
don't you?
do. I still do. I didn't get much sleep last night. It was quite enjoyable. And we're back in our rightful position. 9th. Yes. Talking about the Tigers for any brain-dead people out there. And we're looking like we could get into the 8 before our bye because we've got Freo in Melbourne and GWS. So, two pretty winnable
But knowing
games
Richmond, they'll lose one.
Where's
of those.
North on the ladder?
Well,
We lost support.
They won't lose to GWS.
No. Oh, we lost to Gold Coast last year, so...
Yeah, but no. And Freo have to start playing actual football.
You don't know what it's like to be a Richmond supporter. It's
You
constant
gotta
paranoia.
take the good. You gotta take the
You
good.
do.
There's a lot of bad. Just fish out that good.
Mm.
They went
Filter it.
nuts last night.
It was a great game to watch, really. If you even like, obviously, you'd be a bit upset if you're a Saints fan and you'd be upset if you're a Saints fan just in general. But look,
Well,
It
not
was-
as bad now that Lions gone.
yeah, that's true. And yeah, we'll talk about Fremantle later. But you know, it was a really good game to watch. It wasn't usually those sort of games. You know, it's one of those things that you kind of expect that they'd play as not as average as each other, but as middle tier
Middle of the
as
road, yeah.
where they are. But it was really high quality football, and
Yeah.
Richmond's their stoppage work was just incredible.
Yeah, I was reading Big Footy last night as well. Check it out. And people were calling it. The first half was half of the year, and then some were calling it game of the year. I thought that was a bit of a stretch, maybe just because I was so anxious. But I'd be keen to hear what a neutral supporter thought.
Wasn't it great to see Rewalt kick 8 goals?
Yeah, well, the last 3 were pretty
Gimmies.
yeah.
It's just good to see a big forward kicking goals again.
And
Yeah.
I think it depends whether you talk about skill-wise or like quality-wise, like in terms of game of the year, because there's been a few games that haven't been great skill, but in terms of contest.
This is so far this year, it has to be the game of the year by a long way. It was very skillful. It was a close game the whole time. It could have gone either way, even in the last few minutes when the Saints got that last goal. So, look, it was just a really good game to watch, just from a neutral perspective. Tipsters would have hated it, but...
Well, not me, though.
no, because you...
And not Richo.
No, not Richo. You gotta listen to Richo.
Oh, I hate Luke Darcy. I'm just going to put it out there. He hates Richmond.
Is Richmond the most exciting team to watch for a neutral?
I would say yes. No, I mean, it's good to watch them and to watch... I like watching GWS, for example. I think they're a good side to watch. I like them. I don't like Gold Coast for some reason. I don't know why.
More people jump on the Richmond bandwagon, though, than GWS.
Yes, and we've got the our big second Fighting Tiger Fund dinner tonight, where I think it's $600 a head, and they're asking for big donations. So, if you're listening, hotshots, pay up.
Excitement. Lots of excitement. So, as we mentioned, we touched on it before, after that win, are Richmond genuine finals contenders, or...
Contenders,
Contenders,
yes. Yeah,
yes.
finals contenders. I
Yes.
wouldn't say we're a lock like some people are saying, but yeah.
Well, it really depends how the season plays out, because there's so many rounds to go. Anyone could really get in, apart from a few teams down the bottom, who we know who they are. But apart from them, it's really open for 12 or so teams that could make finals at least.
Yeah.
So
Because if you think about it, if Richmond pinched a win against West Coast, Geelong... And
It was the
Essendon-
Geelong one that burnt me a lot, because they're one of the teams that we're fighting for the,
If that was in Melbourne, you would have had that game.
why we have to play them in Geelong every year. It gets really annoying. But, we should have won. The Bartel and Enright got them over the line.
But then, I think if you pinched one of those games, you'd be in the top 8.
Yeah, but, stuff happens. So.
I don't think many people would have really thought that because the last 4 weeks or months that Richmond have had, it's just been incredible. They had that one loss to Essendon, and that was a really high quality loss, I guess. And we used to saying that about Richmond, but they've backed it up. They didn't just have one good week where they thought, yeah, this is a good week, let's go back to our old, what we used to do. They've backed it up, and that's the challenge for the rest of the year, is to back up these sort of performances from last night.
Yeah. By the end of the Essendon game, people were saying, "Oh, it was an honourable loss," and I was sick of honourable losses by then. We need to win.
6 years of honourable losses.
Exactly.
Some honourable losses.
2010 were... Oh, they were honourable. We tried. We were just terrible. That's the difference. Like, we didn't tank. We were just terrible.
I'd be interested to see how many people before this season, like including like media personalities, who thought that Melbourne were going to exceed Richmond. It'd be interesting just to see.
There was a lot. There was North Melbourne, Richmond, and Melbourne, and they thought Melbourne was the one.
Yeah.
Didn't someone say there was going to be a dynasty?
Back in 2010, I think it was.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people would have picked Melbourne to be the better out of those three teams, and obviously...
Guys, before we head off to some SYN messages, we should probably mention what we've got on the show today. Look, we're going to be talking about... We're going to have a real good look at where the season's shaping up, I guess, that sort of thing. We've also... The Darebin Women's Sports Club have offered us an absolute champion in women's football, Daisy Pearce, and an up-and-coming gun in Jess Dal Pos. She's a champion as well, and, you know, we've got those interviews coming up later. And what else are we talking about, boys?
Goal kicking as well.
Yep, and we're going to be talking about mid-season trading and drafting.
Yes. Would have been helpful for St Kilda. But...
No.
Suck it.
We're going to head off to some SYN messages.
Woo!
Film.
Literature.
Theatre.
Interpretive dance.
Installation art.
Ballet.
Opera.
Visual art.
Origami.
Cabaret.
Beat poetry.
Street art.
Mime.
Puppetry.
Burlesque.
Baroque.
Artspin, SYN's Youth Sunday Arts Program, 4 p.m. Sundays on SYN.
It's time for a Panorama FYI.
What is concentration of media ownership?
Concentration of media ownership refers to the growing trend whereby more media outlets, such as newspapers, radio stations, websites and TV channels, are controlled by fewer individuals or organisations. In Australia, we have one of the most concentrated media sectors in the world. Looking at print alone, 11 of the 12 capital city daily newspapers are owned by only 2 companies.
Get informed. Listen to Panorama 4:30 every weekday on SYN, or head to syn.org.au/panorama.
Righto, you're back on Bound for Glory on SYN. Give us a text in on 0427 767 767 to tell us your thoughts about last night's game.
So we're heading into the middle part of the season. It's already round 10. I can't believe it's already round 10. And look, season's really shaped up in sort of a way I guess most wouldn't have predicted so far. There's a lot of teams up there that you wouldn't have predicted even 5 weeks ago where the ladder was. But so we're basically going to do a contenders and pretenders, except with a little bit more detail. So, look, obviously we're going to cut out the teams that simply aren't, just not going to make it at all. It's Port, Adelaide, Gold Coast, GWS, North Melbourne, Melbourne, Dogs and Lions. Does anybody disagree with that? Or?
I think we've got one panellist that might disagree with one of those teams there.
North Melbourne. They've got a soft draw.
They do.
So if they put everything together,
but
they should make fun.
I'm going to chop you off there because they have had a soft draw already this season, and still they have more losses than wins. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah.
Is this for finals or for?
This is for finals.
Okay, well.
There's going to be for finals and for. We're going to have the contenders.
Yes,
we've got a couple of contenders up there, but we'll get to that. So they're the teams I have knocked out completely. So, and I guess we'll go look at the unproven teams so far. There's 4 unproven teams. After last night, I've bumped up Richmond into that category because they've had a really great month, but the rest of the season has been good without being excellent. So I guess if you're a Richmond supporter, you'd probably think that finals should be on the cards, especially after last month. But you just don't know with Richmond. Usually every season they have a month or a month and a half where things just start to come together and then they fall apart, or or they start slow like they did this year.
It's generally the games that Richmond are supposed to win that they don't win. Like Bulldogs, for example, we haven't beaten in 6 years. And Bulldogs are looking better than what I thought they would this year, to be honest.
They're starting to win a few of those games, though, because recently, even against the better teams, they're getting close. Like, I think last year and the last couple of years, you sort of come up against Richmond and you think, oh, this is going to be a win, mark it down. But this year, it's sort of been, even the better teams, it's been 4 or 5 goals, so it hasn't been a rout like it has previously.
Exactly, yeah.
In the last month, they've by far been the best contested team in the competition by a long shot. how fluid they are under pressure. It's just magnificent. So that's Richmond. They're in the unproven category. There's 3 other teams. The first one of these would be Carlton, because I most sort of had them in the top 8, if not top 4. If not, there was a stage where they were premiership favourites. That was ridiculous. But look, they've had a terrible last month in complete comparison to Richmond. But they are missing. There's a lot of key players that are out. That's why I believe they're unproven. If those players were playing, you'd probably expect top 8 and beyond from then on. But at this stage, you just don't know with the amount of quality players that they are missing. Unproven, St Kilda. I think that kind of speaks for itself. Everybody wrote them off at the start of the year because nothing's really changed. They got Lenny back, but they did lose Ross Lyon, and that changed their game plan a lot. But I don't think anybody really expected them to be challenging as hard as they are at the moment. So, and I guess I'm probably going to get some reaction for this. Unproven, I've got Essendon marked down. They're rampaging this year, obviously, and they're dominating teams, yet they show these little signs of cockiness against weak teams, as though they've already accomplished so much because they've won these games so far this year. But the biggest challenge ahead of them, the first 10 rounds are the easiest 10 rounds. The back half is where you really need to prove yourself. And so far, if you look at the wins that they've had, the only real major win they've had was against West Coast, and they were missing Natanui, they were missing Kennedy. Pritis was subbed out early in the game, and it was in Melbourne. So, look, it's... I guess they still have a lot to prove. They're still one of those teams that I'm not certain on, just like Richmond. I can't really put a finger on it.
Well, with Essendon, from last year's top 8, they've played 3 of the top 8 teams in the first 10 rounds. I mean, including this round, they play Melbourne this round. So it's not, it's not a tough draw that they've had so far. And in the second half of the year where, it really comes down to willpower and they've still got a relatively young team, that's when they play the tough teams. So we'll see how they...
be very interested to see how their fitness holds up, because they had a really, really hard pre-season. And I found last year, because I remember a few teams last year, particularly, personally, Collingwood's pre-season last year was absolutely berserk. They had nutso hard pre-season, and they started off brilliantly and then just died at the end. So I'll be interested to see whether they can keep it up or whether you'll slowly see them fading.
We keep hearing about the weapon and how he's...
Ridiculous.
Wowee. No, I liked you last year, BT. What happened? What happened to you?
Went to 7.
He became a TV personality, and he shouldn't have. All right, so that's those 2 categories down. The last 2 we have are the contenders and pretenders. I'm going to do the contenders first because I want to save the pretenders for later. So I've only got 2 genuine premiership contenders at this stage, and that's West Coast and Collingwood. West Coast, because the rapid improvement they've had from, I guess, the C-grade midfielders. You got Matty Rosa, Luke Shuey, Andrew Gaff, Chris Maston, Scott Selwood. They've all just come up at the same time, and West Coast have had a number of injuries, yet they still look really dominant. It doesn't matter how many players they're missing. They still look fluid. They still look like they can win games no matter what team they put on the field.
Natanui and Pritis have been pretty important this year. I mean... in their win against Richmond, sorry to bring it back to Richmond, they just dominated for like a 20-minute patch, and that won them the game. So with them back in the team, both of them, it'll be, massive towards, finals and where clearances and in and under stuff really does matter.
It's a good point because they, as I mentioned, they do have that solid backbone, but they also have the players that can just come out and for 10-20 minutes just turn it on and kick 5 goals, and that's the difference in games. That's what Collingwood had last year.
And also West Coast are almost unbeatable over there. Almost.
True. Yeah.
Because Freo are beatable, but West Coast are almost unbeatable. So
much like West Coast, Collingwood are my other contender, just the 2 of them. It's the exact same as West Coast, and everybody's stepped up. The C-grade midfielders. Beams is just playing out of his skin at the moment. Jared Blair, Steele side bottom. They've really stepped up in the absence of Luke Ball and Dane Swan. And Alan Didak's actually been really good for the last couple of weeks as well. It's really kind of taking them back to 2010 where they've got, I guess, they look a lot like the team that won a premiership. All right, so here we go. Here's the pretenders. I'm going to rip through these ones. Geelong, completely gone. The spark's just not there. They don't look like the same team. I know they're good in finals and all that, but they don't look good. Sydney, they've had a soft draw to start the season. Everyone was beating them up. That's not enough. They can't beat the good teams when they really need to, and they can't win in Melbourne. They're not going to win a premiership. Same goes for Adelaide. I think they beat a lot of the... Hessie's getting into me for that one. No, look, they're a good team, obviously, but the only real good wins they've had so far this year were against Carlton in Melbourne and Sydney at Sydney. Other than that, they haven't really turned it on so far. Fremantle are the biggest pretenders in the competition. They're not going to win a premiership because they have the wrong coach. We've talked about that many times so far, but they have the wrong coach. Last one, drum roll for the last one, massive pretenders, Hawthorn. And look, we've heard for a long time that Hawthorn have got, 2008, they won the premiership with all these young guys that are about to start a dynasty. I'm going to say it, those players are completely overrated. It's not that they were underrated, it's that they were playing out of their skin. Now they've gone back to playing the way that they should have played, and that's average. They have a good list, but the players that they need to play in core areas of the ground, they just don't. And it's...
Remember when Xavier Ellis was going to be the gun of the competition, and now he can't get into their firsts? No. It's pretty ridiculous. Clinton Young as well. He did play a good grand final. But... Yeah,
I guess they have a lot of pretenders just in the team, but as a collective group, they are the biggest pretenders of the season. We're going to jump off to some SYN messages, and we'll be back to... What are we going to talk about, boys?
Oh, we're going to have the interview.
There we go.
Two lovely ladies.
Excellent. We'll be back after this.
Get cereal!
Slept in this week?
This is what you missed.
I think you'd have to send Delta Goodrum.
What? No!
She's got to be made for Eurovision.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, she cannot sing. She cannot sing.
Well, she was born to try at least.
Look, he's very sociable. Most fighting fish are. And I ate some tuna the other day. I looked at Pele and he looked at me. And I was like, oh.
He knows.
He knows.
Get cereal. Get cereal.
Get cereal from 6 a.m. weekdays only on SYN.
Drug and alcohol issues affect us all. You can be part of raising awareness by getting involved in Drug Action Week from June 17 to 23. Activities are being planned across the nation around the theme of looking after your mind. So don't miss out on playing your part in this national campaign to improve the health and well-being of all Australians. Register now at drugactionweek.org.au to get ideas about what to do and free promotional gear to start planning your activity today. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook.
All right, you're on Bound for Glory on SYN FM.
So, I wouldn't expect a lot of people to really know the name as soon as I say it, but Daisy Pearce, as far as women's football goes, she is the Omega. She is just an absolute champion. If you've seen her go about her business, it's just magnificent to watch. I'm going to rattle off a couple of stats for you guys here. She's played in 5 premierships. She's co-captained 3 of those premierships. She's won 3 competition best and fairest, as well as a few best on grounds for the grand final. The most amazing thing about that is I believe she just turned 24 years of age. She is an absolute champion. She's still got her best years ahead of her. Daisy Pearce, we've got an interview with her coming up now.
Taking us back to when you started playing footy for the Darebin Falcons back in 2004, at just 15 years of age, was senior women's footy what you expected?
Yeah, it was. It has changed a lot since then, but I think coming into it, it was pretty much what I'd expected. I had been told by a few of the boys that I'd played with up in Bright that I'd dominate and find it easy because I'd played against them, but it wasn't the case because they were all pretty physical and strong and that kind of thing. But certainly the league's grown a lot since then, and I've seen some huge changes even just in the snapshot of time that I've been involved.
And Darebin's a club that sort of cemented itself as one of, if not the premier team in the VWFL, winning 5 flags from 06 to 2010. You've been around since the start of that era and even co-captained a few of those wins. As a veteran of the club and the competition, do you think the all-round quality has improved over the years?
Oh, definitely. You see just the transition in the style of the game that's being played. Like, whilst it was very physical and competitive back in those early years where I was playing, I think the sport started attracting to very athletic and a lot more younger players now, especially with the development of the youth girls competition, and it's just such a faster, more exciting brand of football these days, and definitely the quality of the game is moving with it.
And being such a young lady and having achieved so much as far as football goes, do you still see footy as a challenge?
Oh, definitely. People often ask me that one, and I think I'm one of my harshest critics, so that helps a little bit because I whatever I have achieved along the way, I'm always looking to try and improve my game. And I think with a lot of the achievements I have kind of made, luck is a lot of those. With best and fairest and that kind of thing, a lot's got to go your way. So the things I can control, I keep trying to improve each year.
And you represented Victoria in the 07 EJ Witten's game. What was it like to play against some of the, I guess, male greats of Australian footy?
Yeah, it was really good. They were quite supportive of me on the day. Most of them were. But there were still a few heads out there that were keen to get their own kicks, I think, and weren't too keen on passing me the ball. But all in all, it was a really good experience, and had a really great day, and was happy to be given the opportunity to take part.
And last question, away from footy, I believe you recently became a qualified midwife. Is it difficult to juggle a career as well as be a mentor and role model as far as football goes?
Initially I did find it quite hard and found that my fitness dropped off a little bit just adjusting to the full-time kind of work, because I'd worked for my mum up until then, so it was pretty flexible. But I made that adjustment last year, and I work at Box Hill Hospital, and they're really supportive, and I have to say thanks to them, because working in an industry where it is shift work, I thought I might struggle a little bit, but they've been really supportive at getting me into little areas where I can work Monday to Friday and juggling things around my training and playing commitments, so that's been fantastic.
Oh, you're on Bound for Glory on Sin, fellas. Just talk about the interview for a minute.
Yeah, Daisy, she's got a great head on her in that she's just very mature in the way that she goes about football. As I said, if you've seen her go about her business, she's just a very professional, I guess. And the women's game in itself as well, it's a magnificent addition. We don't get to talk as much as we like to about local and state leagues and that sort of stuff.
She played in the Legends game, didn't she?
She did play in the 07 EJ Witten Legends game as well, and she certainly held her own against the fellas.
I've got a little bit of a scoop for you boys.
Ooh.
By 2020, the AFL is going to have a women's dedicated competition.
Sounds good.
I'd be more than happy with
They're
that.
putting money and funding into getting the youth to play footy.
That's good. That's magnificent to hear. But the big challenge will be upholding it. We've also, from the Darebin Falcons, we've been given a young lady named Jessica Dal Pos. Now she was very successful in the state competition that was recently run last year. She captained the team to the Under-18s National Youth Women's Championship, which was magnificent. Jessica Dal Pos.
So having represented Victoria in the 2011 AFL National Youth Girls Under-18 Championships back in September, what sort of experience was it like?
That was an experience that can't ever be replicated, even if I were to play for Victoria again. It was 1 week of just fun, really. We trained for months and months and months to put it all into 1 week, which thankfully turned out as national champions.
And captaining the side must have been a bit of an extra thrill as well?
Absolutely. It was a pressured job, but it was one that I absolutely loved and learned from, especially for Victoria, where every other state hates us. So that was an enjoyable experience.
And what was it like to be voted by your peers and coaches as the best Victorian team player?
That was completely surprising and humbling. It really blew me away. I didn't think that people saw me in that kind of light, if that makes sense. It truly surprised me. And have the people that I played with and worked with vote me in it beats any other accolade you could ever receive.
And the Darebin girls had a nice win on the weekend to hand Diamond Creek their first loss of the season. You've now jumped to the top of the ladder, a nice record of 5-1, and obviously looking to make another grand final appearance this year. How's the season shaping up for both yourself and the girls?
It started as a bit of a struggle, working on a new game plan because we've got a new coach and a new style of play, but each week we progress and we get better and better. So around the point end of the season, it should be very interesting. And at the moment, we're pretty happy with our performances.
And now that you're regularly playing in the VWFL for the Darebin Women's Sports Club, do you feel like you've got a bigger burden to perform?
Not really. I've got older, more experienced people around me, so I feel like a rookie all over again.
All right, bound for glory on Sin. We'd like to thank the Darebin Falcons for lending us Jess and Daisy for an interview. Are we going to head off to Sin messages?
Yes, we are.
Excellent.
Sim would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the land on which we broadcast. We pay respect to their elders, past and present.
Get cereal!
Slept in this week?
This is what you missed.
Red child or rare child?
Rare child, like baby Steve.
Okay, but why is it... Oh.
We're not generally meant to ask why. Oh, yeah, right.
It just went quiet here at the studio.
Just for those who are visually impaired, Stephen is a ginger.
A beautiful ginger.
A beautiful
it looks
ginger.
Great.
And he has very full, thick lips.
People say
as
I am.
well.
I'll say that's just weird.
Get cereal. Get cereal.
Get cereal from 6 a.m. weekdays only on Sin.
All right, bound for glory on Sin.
Look, I just wanted to ask a question, Hesse. You mentioned before that there's going to be a Australian-wide competition for women. How do you know this?
People out there might not know. I work for North casually, and I've been helping in the multicultural area. And AFL's looking to have by 2020 a full, proper AFL women's competition. So they're trying to get the youth, the girls, to play footy now, so they're ready for the big stuff by 2020.
It's always good seeing, both men and women at the games, and especially with the advent of AFL 9s as well. A lot of women are playing the game in that form.
Yeah, Melbourne Uni's been training at North Melbourne as well, so they're kind of affiliated as well.
All right. Look, fellas, we're going to have a bit of a chat about the mid-season draft and trading period, or the possibility of that. Look, last night, obviously, with the Saints playing, it was Blake and Cozzy doing the ruck work with Ben McAvoy and Reece Stanley going down. So I think Scott Waters mentioned, I think it was last week, a mid-season draft possibility of, being able to draft a ruckman or a mature age player from the state leagues to bolster their squad through when injuries occur. Obviously, while it's going to help clubs patch holes in their list, the season opens up a lot more through injuries. And obviously it's a misfortune, but I guess that's how the season plays out. Waters should stop complaining. He's got McAvoy. He's really the only proven ruckman with one pinch hitter. He should just better list management.
Can I just chip in there for a second? Isn't that one of the big challenges in AFL, is not only on the field to try and win a premiership, but to try and, for those behind the scenes, to have a list to win a premiership all season, even if there are injuries?
Exactly. He should be looking at depth in every single position, not just looking at running players. Obviously, like, the Saints could have picked up a ruckman cheaply last year if they wanted. Brock McCauley, he had a fairly good season with the Lions and was a surprising delistment, and got picked up by the Hawks.
Although he's injured now, so...
Yeah. But I think it's more interesting to pick up a mid-season... more interesting than a mid-season draft is a mid-season trading period. You could pick up an underperformer and turn them into a player that could change your whole season. Obviously... right now, Aaron Davey is a proven player, but he's just not in the right environment. He hasn't got his head screwed on. Trav Cloak could probably walk into GWS right now and help them win a few more games. Do we leave the system as it is now, fellas, or is a mid-season drafting or trading period something the AFL should look into?
I think they've just got to sort of harden up, the Saints, because basically they're not the only team with injuries. Every team has them. Most teams have got at least 5 or 6 on the injury list, and some have been hit in positions, and a lot of the teams are still winning. So, I mean, yeah, you lose in the ruck, but,
No, you're spot on the money with it. You just got to harden up, because, look...
Drink a cup of cement.
Yeah, pretty much, because, look, Collingwood and West Coast, I mentioned that those were my top 2 contenders. They've got a massive injury list, and they've got no problem. Why? Because they drafted to make sure that they had the players in case this happens. Collingwood have no backline. They have no key defenders, yet they still make sure that they're able to go with those tall guys because they drafted right. Same goes for West Coast. They've had their midfield completely knocked out 2 times over, and yet they still have kids just coming up and having no problem. It's just a big case of just need to harden up.
Saints, if you want a ruckman, we've got Angus Graham dominating in the 2s, and we'll take your first round draft pick. That'd be good.
All right. Well, sorry, Joe. You go for it.
Thanks, John. Would the mid-season draft work? Would just say Brock McLean for Carlton? He's not getting a game.
Ooh, don't go there. No, look. Realistically, he was. No, that's why we won't go there, because I'll get on a rant. We'll completely go off topic. Look, realistically, it would work. It's easy to implement, but just don't want it. I just don't want it. It just seems so petty in that if something bad happens to you, you get a second chance. That's not what it's about. It's about having a team that's ready to win a premiership all year, not manufacturing it midway through the year when you know how the cookie's going to crumble.
And I mean, it goes in ebbs and flows. Some years, some teams will be lucky. Some years they won't. There's some players that'll constantly be injured. So I mean, it's just the way it
What
goes.
happens if it were in this year, there might be a number of Melbourne players that just they don't want to be there at the moment. They think, okay, I want to go to a team that is winning, for example. And just 5 of them just up and leave. What's going to happen then? Melbourne will be left as nothing more than a development team with 12 rounds still to go in the season.
They're already
I was going to say they're not going to get much lower than they already are.
Maybe it would let Tom Couch get a game. That would be nice.
It would really. I'm a bit worried about the whole free agency thing coming as well, because it's going to turn out, I feel like it's just going to turn out just like something like the Premier League in England, in that there's about 5 good clubs always, and there's just the same 5 clubs that are contending every single year, and then there's the other teams at the bottom that become nothing more than a footnote.
With, they release how much footy department spending there is, and it generally is that sort of trend. The clubs that spend the most on footy department are always in the finals, like the rich clubs, so Adelaide, Collingwood, West Coast, these teams. So
Richmond.
Not
in the final.
Not in the finals. But we're spending more.
But it also depends, because a lot of the better teams are closer to their salary caps. So, I mean, unless you're Melbourne and you pay so many players really high, for some reason a year ago they were at their cap, which really doesn't make much sense.
We've had someone on Twitter post, what about VFL, Sandful and WA Waffle players mid-season draft?
I see, now that's something completely different. That's different to just saying to swapping over kind of players from different teams and targeting them and changing the shape of other teams and your team, that sort of thing. I guess that I wouldn't really have a problem with that working in moderation, in that you can't just say, all right, well, let's just take the 5 best players from this competition kind of thing, where maybe if you're limited to 1 or 2 picks or something like that, and there's some sort of restriction regarding, ladder position, something like that.
Yeah, just make it like a real draft, I suppose. And, things like the Foxtel Cup really work for exposure of these things. I know in the Sandful, some clubs don't want to participate in it, like the top clubs, like Central Districts, for example. But maybe the prospect of being recruited mid-year would make these players demand that the clubs play in the Foxtel Cup so they get more exposure.
Yeah, the Foxtel Cup's magnificent as well, just completely just on the side. But it would work in that, say, right now we've got the teams down the bottom struggling. They could have the first. We could just do what happens at the end of the year, except mid-season. The teams at the bottom get the first picks. Teams at the top obviously get the last picks. It would work it would work in theory. In practice, I guess it would be a risk as far as how the whole teams shape up at the end of the season.
And would you have to delist current players, because that would surely breach their contract, or would it just be a couple of extra players that you get on your list?
Would they bring the list's capabilities up to 50?
But maybe they would make it specifically you can only have 2 players in this mid-season.
I guess you could treat it as like an extra 2 rookies in a way, in that you could I guess draft them as rookies and then just elevate them
like long-term injuries perhaps could be a way to go. For example, how we have the rookie upgrades now with long-term injuries, maybe that's how you can bring them in. You've got to be eligible for that. So I think that could be an option.
Good way to get on to a bit of goal kicking. So,
perfect segue.
Yeah. I didn't catch last week's game, Richmond Hawthorn, but I watched the highlights. And what do we do with Buddy? Franklin's kicked 21 goals, 36 so far this season. Against the Tigers last week, he was having low percentage shots from the boundary and burning teammates who were in better position. There was that famous one with, I think it was Lewis in the last quarter, where he could have handballed it off. Franklin's got all the skill and the ability to be the best player in the competition, if only he could kick the ball damn straight. He misses the easy shots. What do you tell him? As coach, do you allow him to have those shots because when the time comes where he has to be the man to kick the clutch goal, you don't want him passing it off? Or do you tell him to give it to a person who's in the best position every time?
It was very selfish last week, in my opinion. Rioli as well. But I don't know. Sometimes I think with the way that they're playing him up the ground, which I think you'll discuss a bit further as well, maybe he's just too tired when he goes to have a shot for goal, and that really throws him off.
Also, other teams with power forwards, let's say Collingwood and not so much Fremantle, but Adelaide with Walker, they've figured out ways how to get their big guys working up the middle of the ground rather than pushing out to the wings like Hawthorn will do with Buddy. That's what they need to figure out, is how to get Buddy the ball 35 metres out straight in front rather than 45 out on the boundary line.
It's a tricky one, though. It might stop Franklin kicking the wonderful goals from the boundary, but it might be more beneficial for the Hawks if he passes it off to players in better positions.
It doesn't matter how you get the goals so long as you get the goals, and he's not getting the goals.
In 2008, he kicked 100 goals and was arguably the most damaging player in the competition. Nowadays, he's getting the same amount of opportunities but missing the goals. As the game develops, one part that hasn't developed is goal kicking. It's always been a thing players struggle with. In no other sport in the world, missing from 20 metres out is acceptable. But if you watch players these days, they continue to miss the easy ones. It's not only Franklin, but he's one of the main culprits. He can kick the freakish ones from the boundary here and there, but when it comes to a set shot straight in front from 40 or 30 or 20 metres out, he just misses. With sports science being so involved in the game now, players don't have the time for goal kicking as they once did. What do you do with Buddy?
Not sure. And with this buddy ball thing, like teaching kids how to kick, can there be a worse player in the competition to have the ball? Oh, maybe Cozzy, but or Lindsay Thomas. But
cool.
Yeah, good call, honest call. I don't know. I think they should just play him inside 50, maybe roaming up to centre of the ground, but no further than that. I'm
a very, very against power forwards running down and taking cheap marks at the half-back flank to get them a touch of the ball. It's not going to do you any favours if you have your big man hanging out on the wing and then bombing it long inside 50, because he's not going to be under the ball. If you have a big guy, utilise him and keep him inside the forward 50 unless you need an extra ruck or something like that. There should be no reason why a forward comes out of that forward 50 arc. I don't understand the point of having somebody coming up to get a cheap touch on the wing, because what are they going to do with it? Who are they going to deliver the ball to? They're not going to... power forwards don't really pinpoint out passes to go inside 50 because that's not their job. They're not built for that. They're built to take marks and kick goals. There'll be times where they won't take as many marks and they won't have the chance to kick as many goals, but don't push them up the wing. They're not going to kick a goal from the wing or the half-back flank.
Oh, he could just hand pass it to Cyril and he could do a delicious run down the middle and kick goal of the year.
The question is, I wonder though, whether Hawthorn are trying it, because they still have Hale and Roughhead, and I couldn't exactly imagine Hale sort of running down the wing.
No, Roughhead's the way to go with Hawthorn, and as soon as Hawthorn figure that out, they'll be best off for it, is because they have a massive over-reliance on Franklin because he's Franklin. But if you look at Roughhead's stats over the last few weeks, he's kicked a number of goals, and it's because he flies under the radar still, because he's missed out for a little bit.
Which is amazing since he's so good.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I really think Roughhead's one of the most underrated players in the competition.
He is. He's a magnificent footballer. I'd love to have him. Any team would love to have him because he just works.
So with that, I think we'll go to some SYN messages and we'll come back and discuss the games.
Get cereal!
Slept in this week?
This is what you missed.
I was just offended. They didn't even ask me to.
How about yourself, Esther? Are you a vegetarian?
I'm not a vegetarian, but I can't eat lamb.
That technically makes Sally the sexiest vegetarian
in the room.
Yeah, so congratulations,
well, there you go.
Sally.
Yeah.
We're back on Get Cereal with Aaron, Mark and Rachel.
Were you about to introduce yourself as being on air?
It was awkward. Just go past it.
Get Cereal. Get Cereal.
Get Cereal from 6 a.m. weekdays only on SYN.
It's time for a Panorama FYI.
The 2011 announced carbon tax aims to reduce Australia's carbon footprint by taxing industries on the amount of carbon they expel. As a result, heavily polluting industry products become more costly, while environmentally friendly industries become cheaper for the average consumer. Greener products become the norm in households rather than a luxury, and behavioural change towards fewer emissions occurs domestically and industrially. However, the plan is less than perfect. with many heavy polluters being exempt from the tax.
Get informed. Listen to Panorama 4:30 every weekday on SYN, or head to syn.org.au/panorama.
And welcome back. You're with Bound for Glory on SYN. We've been getting our texts in, so we're going to read a few out. We've got one in saying that Smets, Gillies and Stringer aren't in the twos, so there's going to be changes for Geelong.
Scoop.
Come on, Smetty.
Scoop.
So that could be interesting.
GWS win?
No.
No way. And as a side note, any chance Gary Ayres coaching AFL again?
Never.
No, not anymore. He's a great coach, and he'll always be a great coach. But with that said, it's different to be a VFL coach, a successful VFL coach, and then be a successful AFL coach.
I wouldn't mind him coaching Freo right now, though. That would be nice.
Yeah.
And we've also got the best thing with injuries is seeing how the teams recover. It's already an open season. Imagine what a mid-season draft would do.
Yeah, spot on.
And another one going on that was just saying that they should only be players from the state leagues. So
I think there is a way, as we mentioned, there is a way that we could sort of incorporate that into the game. That could work because it won't damage any other teams, and it's just going to make the competition stronger. All right, so look, we talk about Melbourne every single week. Just before we get into the previews, I've got a massive bone to pick. I was just flicking through the newspaper as you do, and there was a little clippet that just irritated me, and it's everything that I hate about Melbourne at the moment. And it's defender Jared Rivers says speculation Demons players don't support coach Mark Neeld is, quote, nonsense. It's pretty poor journalism, he said. The story has been around 8 or 9 weeks now, and it's just a non-story. I'm sorry, Jared, but if you're going to go out there and you're going to play football that you don't look like you want to win, I think the closest they've got to an opponent has been 18 points. They haven't been in most games. They very rarely lead opponents. They don't play with a purpose to win. They go out there to play football. They don't go out there to win. It doesn't appear as though they're playing for the coach, and that's fair enough that the media are going to say, hey, a team that is 0-9 and looks nothing like they're going to claim a win is not playing for the coach.
Question is, are they going to beat GWS in round 13?
I genuinely doubt it.
What round is that?
13. So just they have a couple of rounds which they're going to lose.
I genuinely doubt it because they're going to go into their bye without a win. They're going to come up against a team that in their first season, they're under a coach that really wants to spur the team to win. Neeld is doing the exact same, except Sheedy has players that will listen to him because they're not big-headed. They're young and they're ready to learn. Melbourne's youngsters just seem to say, oh, well, we've been in the system for a couple of years. We know what we're doing. We can go out there and play football, but they can't. They just can't. If they could, they would have zero. They wouldn't be 0-9. Like, it's just that obviously there's something wrong with it. So just to sum this up, because I'm going into our preview time here, Jared Rivers, don't come out and say that it's nonsense for the media to speculate that you're not playing for the coach when you're 0-9 and you play with absolutely zero purpose.
Jared Rivers. Turn it up.
Caro's arrow. All right. So it's perfect segue into the first game. Geelong GWS played at Simmons Stadium. I really don't think we should even bother going into this in too much detail.
Well,
Geelong
what's
by
the
a
margin?
lot.
Yeah.
I think the margin is 79 points, and that probably wouldn't be too bad to get on.
Yeah, I was thinking something about 80 is about right. So if GWS get anything much lower than that, like if they get within 10 goals, I think they'd be pretty happy.
Geelong paying $3 to win by 100 points. Pods Yadley's going to be one out with Phil Davis. That'll be probably as interesting as the game gets. That's all I'm going to be watching. Won't care about the scoreline. I don't think Sheedy will be that interested in the scoreline either, to be honest. But yeah, Geelong by a long way.
Probably is it next game of the round? Hawthorn North?
Tips. We'll go for tips first.
Let's go for tips for this game. Geelong.
Yeah, I think Geelong.
Giants.
Yeah. By minus 400.
Yeah.
All right. So Hawthorn North Melbourne.
Well, this is one of those games I wouldn't be surprised if either side won. They've both been a little inconsistent, more like North in the last quarter. So I think it'll be Hawthorn's inconsistency versus North's last quarter. So if North are up by enough in the last quarter, they should win.
The battle of the
but then
apple
again,
aisle.
Hawthorn, if Buddy kicks straight, then that's another thing. So North's last quarter versus Buddy kicking straight.
I am genuinely surprised that Hawthorn are such short odds to win this game. In that the last time they played in Tassie, It was a really close game. It was last year. It was a really close game. It was relatively low scoring, and I believe the final score was 15 or 16 points, and it was just because there was a goal on the siren to Hawthorn. But it was close all game. North Melbourne were having a pretty average season up to that point. Hawthorn were having a pretty good season up to that point. I think that's pretty much how we are at the moment. So I wouldn't be shocked if it were to be decided by under a kick or two.
Interesting stat. The 4 games that both clubs have played against each other at Aurora, it's been 2-2. So North don't play that bad at Aurora.
And that's the thing, because the media keep harping on about how well Hawthorn play down there. The last game they played, they lost to Sydney. Like, are they still going on about that Freo game where Freo played about 8 players from their best 22? And of course Hawthorn were going to win. Like,
Cyril kicked goalie, again.
I remember there was one game, it was one Hawthorn North Melbourne game down there, and I think it was 2008 or 2009, and there was lightning, and it was absolute sleet, and nobody could see like a step in front of them, and it was just funny to watch because they couldn't. Because you go out there and you obviously you want to be professional, but it's hard to be professional when you've got lightning a couple of 100 metres down the road and you can't see in front of you, and there's big piles of water, and the ball just hits the ground and it thuds, and you can't mark it, you can't kick it. It's just funny to watch.
Tips. Oh no! Did you want to?
Just quickly, is a make or break game. So
Yes.
If North win,
This is an 8-point game.
If North win, I wouldn't wipe them completely off the slate yet, but I think it'd be pretty. They've got a lot of work to do, even if they do win this game. To be honest, I think it's more must win for Hawthorn just to prove that they can win.
Because Hawthorn aren't in great form, which I must say I predicted from round 1. Because I do remember coming in round 1 after that game saying that if they could kick straight, like opposition kick straight, Hawthorn are in trouble.
Yeah, I also said Fremantle will be challenging for the top 4, but yes, tips, boys.
Hawks by about 10 for me.
North by 2.
Yeah, I'll say Hawks by under a kick.
Yeah,
I have a feeling about North for some reason.
I'm going to go Hawks by about a couple of goals. Not much.
Fremantle, Adelaide. I guess in yesteryear you may have got pretty excited about this, but it's really difficult to get excited for a Ross Lyon-inspired game of football, especially over at Patterson's.
3 goals in 3 quarters.
So you know the margin's probably not
I felt like
big.
a champion last week. Every single week, Sportsbet offer their total points thing, and every single week I say it's going to be under, and it's always under by about 50 points. Thank you, Ross Lyon. My pocket thanks you, sir.
You're giving away our secrets.
No, like anything with Ross Lyon, you know it's not going to be much of a scoring game. It'll probably be about 3 goals each at half time, if they're lucky. So
I understand playing defensively on smaller grounds, but Patterson's, it's so wide. There's so many. It's a running ground, and they have running players that they have damaging rebound players that can just go forward and just turn defense into attack really quickly. Yet Ross drops all the men behind the ball and tries to fill the gaps, and as a result, they kick 3 goals.
How do you fill a gap at Subiaco?
It's impossible. I just don't understand. With that said, Adelaide should win this. Adelaide will win it comfortably. It'll be low scoring and boring. Don't even bother watching it. Unfortunately, it's on that time slot that you have nothing else to watch because it's the only game. I think that's a bit unfair. But look, Adelaide. It won't be by much. Adelaide don't win by much. Fremantle don't lose by much. But they lose, and they will lose again.
I was tempted to tip Freo, but then I saw the team sheet and Zach Dawson lining up on Tippett. So Adelaide.
Just quickly, fellas, would Mark Harvey, if he was still at the Dockers, would they be a much better side this year?
Yeah, because they play attacking
At
football.
least they would be entertaining to watch.
They have a team that can kick a winning score. They've proved that in previous years. You got Pavlich down there. That in itself, just saying Pavlich, you'd think, okay, he's a proven power forward. In Melbourne, he doesn't get as much recognition that he deserves, especially since he gets used in the midfield a lot. But he's one of the best power forwards that we've seen ever. He's a champion, and yet he struggles. He's like Nick Riewoldt in previous years in that he's a capable forward that isn't being given a chance because they get very limited chances to go forward.
All right, tips, boys.
Yeah, Adelaide.
I'm going Freo by a goal, just purely because it's at Patterson's.
Is that the final score?
You're going GW. so far you've tipped GWS North
GWS
and Freo. How's the multi going for that?
Multi's going well.
Paying him 24 million.
Adelaide.
Yeah, Adelaide by about 5 goals, which will probably be about 8 goals to 3.
Yeah.
So,
Essendon, Melbourne tonight at the MCG. It's hard again. It's another one to get excited for. Although Melbourne did win this fixture last year,
they will not win it this year.
No
They're
chance.
going to beat up on Melbourne, and Stanton is going to get 200 DT points.
A little fact: Melbourne's closest margin has been on a Saturday night at the G against Saints.
Ominous.
Didn't let me get this right. Essendon only just beat Gold Coast, didn't they?
Yes, that's the cockiness that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
Is Essendon? That's why
so it could be maybe under 50 points.
But at least Gold Coast and GWS again, they play with purpose. They came out to try and win. Melbourne just don't try and win.
Are they tanking? Do they want
They're
to
not
get...
tanking. No, they're just genuinely
If they finish
bad.
last, they get picks 1, 2, and Jack Viney. So that's pretty big.
They're Shizen anyway. They're just going to get
it summed it up well.
Pick one will go to GWS again.
No, it doesn't have to.
Oh dear, yeah, Essendon by a lot.
Yep.
Essendon, at least 8 goals.
Port Carlton, dun dun dun.
It's one of those fixtures where I think the location really changes the way that you look at the game. If it were in Melbourne, you'd probably say Carlton pretty comfortably, even though they're really not in that grand form. But it's over in Amy Stadium. There's a few question marks over this game. I think it really is going to be determined more by how Port play rather than Carlton play, because Port they haven't been bad all year. I know that Primus was under the pump because they had those string of losses, but they were never really bad losses. They've always been okay.
And what happened last time they were at Amy Stadium again?
I think it was about 10 points at three-quarter time, and Carlton ended up winning by a mere 70.
I meant Port playing last time.
Okay, all right.
No, it was a crack at the Kangaroos. That's okay then.
Port's been in good form. Jay Schultz.
Completely
Schultz
missed the
has been in
injury.
good form, and great pickup of Brad Ebert, by the way. Got him for a bargain as well, so quite good.
No Henderson, I believe, as well for Carlton, so it's just Jamison on Schultz. That'll be interesting, seeing as Schultz is in good form, Jamison is in bad form. As I said, I think Port Adelaide will determine this game, but I still have faith that Carlton will win by a couple of goals.
If Carlton lose, is there going to be massive heat on Ratton?
Not on Ratton. I think on Carlton, on the players, and if it does go to Ratton, that's completely unfair on Ratton. It's the players that go out there at the end of the day.
On your physios, the heat would be a few more injuries.
And Port should be competitive at least. I think Carlton will win by a few goals. So
yeah, I'm going Carlton by about 6 or 7.
I'm going the draw.
No, I honestly, that's not. I wouldn't. I think it'll be a close game. It's a lot closer than it leads on. Brisbane West Coast. Again, this is another one that you look at and you think it should probably be determined, but I think the last time they played there last year, West Coast played up at Brisbane last year, and it was a really close game.
I heard that Scott Lycett's flown up as well, so we might see Cox or Natanui's are laid out.
Who's going to play on merit?
As a forward or
as a forward?
Glass, I guess.
I don't think they'd put him up forward this week.
No, not this
Obviously,
week, no.
Glass versus Merritt's just a like-for-like matchup. Look, obviously, I think Eagles are going to win this game, although you're right, Marsden. It was only an 8-point loss last time the Lions played against West Coast up at the Gabba, so it could be interesting.
Brisbane's second half last week was much better.
Yeah, Brisbane aren't a bad team. They're starting to get it together. If they're really going to go for that shock upset this year, this will be the one that you'd probably expect, I guess. But with that said, I'll stick with West Coast.
Yeah, I think West Coast will win this one.
Yeah. I'm going for the West Coast Ducks on this one.
Jesus, come on.
Next, Sydney Bulldogs. Good game, should be, maybe.
Mumford back in, but will he play?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, and I'm not sure how the late fitness tests are going, but I guess we'll see. I think
going up against the man mouse in Wilmington.
Yeah. God, he's a potato. I think I'm going to stick with Sydney, and I'm pretty confident in saying Sydney. If out of other than Essendon, Melbourne, Geelong, GWS aside, I think this is the game that's pretty obvious, to be honest. If you want to go get some value for money, especially.
So, I think this is a location game. Played in Melbourne, I think you go Doggies, but played in Sydney, you go Sydney.
Sydney cannot play in Melbourne.
For that reason, I'll go Sydney.
Yep, Sydney as well.
Sydney.
I'm going the Dogs. I think this is the upset of the round.
Why? What makes you feel...
Their contested ball has been really good, and Sydney are a team that thrive on it, and if the Dogs can beat them, then I think they can do anything.
To think if the Bulldogs kicked straight last week, they should have beaten Geelong.
Yeah, Geelong are a shadow of their former selves, I believe. Last game of the round, Collingwood, Gold Coast at the MCG. At Etihad, I think this would be a more interesting game. At the MCG, Collingwood are going to skip over the final line. So this is there's a lot of non-contests, I guess, this week. Collingwood by a lot, I think.
1, 2, 4 non-contests, in my opinion.
This round hasn't been really any exciting matchups whatsoever.
I think there'll be at least one or two of those games might live up to a bit more than we expect from them. But I don't think it'll be this one.
I think Sydney Bulldogs will be a cracker.
Yeah. Apart from last night, that's it.
Yeah, last year it was only 54 points or something. And you got to remember how much Collingwood were beaten sides by last year, and it was only 54 points. So it could be closer than the belting that everyone's thinking.
That was also up there as well. This is down at the MCG. It's going to be in front of 40, maybe 50,000 pretty excited Collingwood fans because they're most likely going to see a win. Obviously aren't many Melbourne-based Gold Coast supporters, so Collingwood by a lot.
All right, fellas, I think it's time to wrap it up. We'll just hit a few plugs. I think you guys should all follow us on Twitter at Bound for Glory FM, and also on Facebook, facebook.com/Bound for Glory FM. Sergeant Supercoach, obviously, get on him. And Bound for Glory News, we're going
to Bound for Glory News. I think we'll have a bit more information to tell you guys about that next week or in the week after. But Bound for Glory expanding to take over the Australian media. We'll be launching our own news service. So if that's something you want to get involved in, just let us know.
All right, fellas. Well, it's been Bound for Glory. I think it's time for us to go.
Go Tigers.
See you later.
Oh, yes, it's late night, and the